Attention, human scum. You are listening to the Sirens of Audio.
Hello?
Hello.
Are you unwell?
Prognostication unknown.
Well, it just seems as if you have a dog in your throat.
Affirmative.
Well, I hope you're feeling better soon.
I will, as long as our audience likes this video and subscribes to our channel.
Yes, that'd be great. Do you know who happens to be guesting on the show today?
Insufficient data, Master.
G'day, audiophiles. This is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
Yeah, and I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
Oh, that was not you, Philip. I don't believe
I
you.
am not going to match. I do believe in mirroring the person. I'm not going to mirror you being an absolute idiot. You want to do that? Fine. Don't expect me to mirror that one.
Harsh, Philip, harsh. All right, today's going to be a great show. We have the incomparable John Leeson joining us later to talk about his role as K9, of course, but he's got a massive career spanning decades and decades. Very varied career. We're going to be talking about that in depth. But how are you, Philip? How are you recovering? We've been to Brisbane. That September events are over and done. How are you feeling?
I'm utterly exhausted and just want to go to bed.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So let's not take too long doing this, okay?
Yes, okay. No worries. All right, so John Leeson's coming up soon. Well, we don't have to take so long because when we were in Melbourne a couple of weeks back, we did a live recording of the audience doing a rabbit hole topic. So we might just cross over to them right now. How's that sound?
That sounds like a great idea. Take them down the rabbit hole.
Okay, let's go.
Now, something official that we normally do on our podcast is something called a rabbit hole topic, where I throw a random question at Philip and he talks about it, and
he panics slightly every time.
Yeah, so we normally do this in Sydney when I'm there because I haven't been to Melbourne before, I haven't done it, but I like doing these and getting the live audience participation. So any interaction that we have with you, we're going to put that on a forthcoming podcast. So keep that in mind. If you want to be on the podcast, speak as much as you like, because it's going to be there.
We have 10 minutes.
All right. So, with that said, I'm going to put in some special effects. When I say, let's jump down the rabbit hole. There you go. Special effects, you'll see that. And my question to you, Philip, is, it's a very simple question. I've probably asked you this before. But we listen to a lot of audio, as the name of our podcast suggests. And how do you prefer to listen to it? Some people like it driving in the car. Some people listen to it as they fall asleep and hear the first 5 minutes of every story. How do you prefer to listen to your audio?
Definitely wouldn't listen to it falling asleep because I would be asleep in no time. I do most of my audio listening in the car. I have 6 children. I spend a large amount of my time driving my children places. Fortunately, most of them are growing up now, but they dance every afternoon. I'm going to drive to and from. So a lot of my audio listening happens in the car. I used to try and not do too much because my daughter used to always put her headphones in and I thought it was just making her cranky. And then I stopped listening to her so I could talk to her. And she said, Dad, can you start listening to some audios again? Because I really like listening to my music and I'd rather do that than talk to you anyway. So I actually realised I was actually making her happy by putting on my audio so she could put her headphones in and listen to what she wanted to listen to. So most of the time I'll be in the car. I've got waterproof headphones now, so I've started doing some in the pool while I'm swimming laps, trying to get some exercise up, pretending to get healthier. So most of my listening in the car.
Excellent. In the noughties, I used to listen to audio just on the stereo in the house, so I'd have it blasting loud. And that's probably why she divorced me in the end. So I progressed, well, it used to be in the car as well, but I've progressed lately. I think the best audio experiences with headphones, particularly noise cancelling headphones, because there are things in the audios that, particularly Big Finish, that you hear that you won't hear just listening in a car. So they're our thoughts. What are your thoughts? How do you like to listen to audio? And what do you think the benefits of the way you listen to it are? All right.
Thank you. Yeah,
You're welcome.
Back in the night, well, like I said, the noughties, but anyway, I used to buy the cassettes of the audio soundtracks, like with the missing stories. Well, first I bought Evil of the Daleks, Power of the Daleks, Macro Terror, blah, blah, blah. And then I decided to buy some stories I haven't even heard of, like Paradise of Death and The Ghost of End Space, starring John Pertwee. And I used to play them a lot in the car when I had the cassette player. And then late in the late 90s, I moved on to CDs and things like that. And then after a while, CDs phased out. But just recently, I started buying soundtracks on vinyl.
Old school. Love it.
Yes, because I still got a record player. And listening to on vinyl, as what people keep saying, is the clearest sound you'll probably get, because all this is being redigitised. And
that's beautiful coloured vinyl
yeah.
too, you know.
Yeah.
Colours too.
Well, this was released a few months ago, the Highlanders soundtrack. The Crusade's coming out in October, and that's probably another coloured vinyl version. So this is probably how I like to listen to them, because I can just put the record on, just walk away and leave it, and then just come back and relax on the couch and just say, oh yeah, and just imagine seeing the story in real life as I'm listening to it.
You'll have to come back every 2-3 minutes to turn it over.
Yes. Well, actually, if I play side one of this, I can just put side two, and then I can stack the second record on top of this.
Oh, you're 2 and 3 together. I know.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Because I've got one of the old school record players. It's the old school stacker one. So there you are. So it's probably like this nowadays. Is like going back to old school. Is how I like to listen to soundtracks.
Great.
Thank you very much. Just a question though before you sit down. Paradise of Death and The Ghost of End Space.
Yeah, they're on
how did that affect your sanity? They're hard to listen sometimes. Especially The Ghost of End Space.
Was set between the Paradise of Death was set between the Time Warrior and the Invasion of the Dinosaurs. Because you hear in Paradise of Death, you hear the Doctor say, "Sarah Dean, you know you had old Iron Groll and his chums." And there you are. And so when I listen to them, I just wish they just made live episodes of them. Yeah. Because you've got a 5-part story of Paradise of Death and a 6-part of Ghost of End Space.
Yeah. Peter Miles, of course, doing his great Nida.
Yeah. They had Nicholas Courtney did Brigadier. They had all the old cast members, John Pertwee, the Doctor, as usual. And then you got Sarah Jane Smith. And then you got the Brigadier. All the sort of like unit stories, like all through the Pertwee era. So there you are.
Cool.
I love the
Anyone else have any thoughts on how they prefer to listen to audio? Because I'm going to call on someone in a moment. I've spotted someone. Yes.
So I prefer to listen to audio while doing dishes, because it means I'm actually doing something fun while doing something I hate. I also listen with aftershocks, which are bone conducting. And I found that they give...
Say that again, sorry.
Aftershocks?
I thought you said after shots.
I mean, but yeah, gives a very clear experience where it almost feels like you're right there, because it's bone conducting, it's right in your head. And on the note of Ghosts of End Space and Paradise of Death, I also love it. Sorry.
It's okay to love it. It's okay. I just find particularly Ghost of End Space is very hard slog.
I know it's terrible, but I'm listening here.
It's so bad, it's good. All right. Anyone else over here? Oh, was there someone over here that...
I was going to. Sorry. I haven't listened to audios for a long time, but they're all podcasts generally. I come to YouTube like in the last few years, but back in the noughties, as you would say, I did listen to old time radios of Sherlock Holmes and The Shadow and stuff like that from America, because I was working night shift, and so it was a very handy thing to have just playing. I even listened to some audio commentaries as well from like a couple of TV shows and that sort of thing. But I haven't really had time these days. It's too hard. But, yeah.
Cool. Down the front here, Dave.
I know this might be slightly off topic.
We love tangents.
Do you think AI that's all in the news lately, do you think that will be used in the future to bring back past companions that are that they're deceased, like to use their voices and that? I know you've got to get rights and everything, but you don't know what will happen in the future with all that sort of stuff.
That's an interesting question because I think all technology has its benefits. And there's also been an uproar with Big Finish in some corners of fandom with recasting old actors. So now we've gone past the recasting, gone to AI. Now there's going to be outrage about the recast actors as well. We'll always be outraged about something, but as long as it's used properly, I think maybe there is a use for it out there.
Yeah.
Hi, I haven't listened to any sort of audio stuff for quite a while, and I found I was getting quite fidgety if I was just sitting down. I'd plug a USB into my audio player, so I'd be looking at my TV and listening to a soundtrack, and I just couldn't relax. So I think maybe if I listen to sort of podcasts and audios more when I'm driving, or just so I can actually relax more and not fidget about so much. It's just sort of trying to keep still, I guess.
Your podcasts aren't so bad because they're not something that you can drift away from and then come back and it matters too much.
Yeah.
Whereas audio, as long as you listen, I like the clicks. But with audio, if you drift off and then you come back, you go, what the heck is going on? So you have to give a bit more attention. You probably have to give as much attention to audio as you do to television. So, but you have to put a little bit more work in and put those pictures in.
Yeah, sure.
I should have been I was a bit remiss in fact, I've just finished backing an audio drama called True Noir, which is written by Max Allan Collins, the writer of the Road to Perdition. And so I'm just waiting for the Kickstarter now to be finalised, and again, it's going to be a 10-part audio drama with a lot of well-known actors like Katie Sackhoff and I think they've got Michael Ironside or something. Anyway, it's I'm looking forward to it. It's a detective set in the 1930s. So
Michael Ironside's still going.
Yes,
Man.
like that.
I had one question for Aaron. Do you sell Big Finish in your store? You do. You do? What's the feedback on your customers with Big Finish?
So, I think the feedback is there's so much Big Finish now. It's actually hard to have a collection because the collection has become so vast. It's actually hard to store it somewhere. So a lot of people have gone from physical media over to downloads, which makes things simple. I think the other thing I get feedback, and this is honest just as a retailer, is it's too expensive and they release so much of it, it's a financial burden to collect everything, and maybe less of it would make it more special, because if there was less of it, then it's more of an event rather than going, oh no, we've got to save up for the next 3 box sets that are coming out this month, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's why it's very special, because it's very expensive.
The more expensive, the more special.
Yeah.
My interesting story about audios goes way back. I've always been a fan, and so I love inflicting my family with Doctor Who when they don't like it. So we go right back to Slipback and the Pescatons when they first came out on tape.
Slipback is awesome.
It is. But maybe not driving down to Brighton on a family holiday or something like that.
How to split up the family.
Yeah. But they tolerated that. But I remember going to, I think it was like a record fair or something, and picking up probably the hardest audio to listen to in a car with your family. Doctor Who, the special effects. I want to listen to the whole thing, and I won't let them take it out. And it's like Time Lord Staser 5 blasts. Sonic Screwdriver 20 seconds. But so I've had audio in my life as long as I can remember.
Fantastic. On that note, thank you very much, Aaron. Thanks, Dave, for the microphone.
So there you go. There was our rabbit hole. And Philip, I did notice you got up and just left in the middle of that and just wandered off and left me alone with the audience. But yeah,
I had better things to do, Dwayne. I had better things to do.
Once I love our audiences. Once they warm up, they'll keep going all afternoon. If you don't put your foot down.
Well,
So that was a lot of fun.
Doctor Who fans and rabbit holes, always a dangerous combination.
Yeah, true. Lots of tangents out there. Yeah, that's part of the fun of getting together with fans in person too. There's lots and lots of tangents and theories and discussions going on all the time, and that's one of the great things about our events. There's not enough of that in Australia.
No, indeed.
All right, so we're going to talk to John Leeson soon. K9, your memories of K9? Were you a fan of the little tin dog?
Yeah, I love K9. I mean, I started watching it about that time, so
it was
pretty.
Yeah.
Yes, so I would have seen. Actually, the first season I would have seen going out live was actually the K9 season. So I joined on board around the Android invasion. We got to Talons of Weng Chang. We repeated back to John Burt. We went through it all again, and then that time we went on with the Tom Baker season and following on there. So yeah, so I was of the sort of the perfect age. I would have been about 11 or 12 for K9, and yeah, I loved him, and so was thrilled when he stayed on board. I always thought he was amusing and funny, and I thought he was a great companion. So always loved him. You, Dwayne?
Yeah, The Invisible Enemy was number 4 in my off-air beta collection, so that was an episode that I watched a lot, and I've always loved it. I've never quite understood how it gets so panned, but I guess it's my nostalgic memory of watching that show so many times, being one of my first. And it was glossy. It was really glossy after Robots of Death, which was kind of, how would you describe that? It wasn't glossy like The Invisible Enemy, but then you had the Victorian era stories, Talons, and Horror Fang Rock after that. So
it was a big space opera. But I mean, as a kid, I loved those sets, and even inside, when you went inside the Doctor, and yes, okay, it's a bit of fake fur hanging there, but it was, when I was a kid, it wasn't an issue for me at all, and even now, I just get nostalgic, and it makes me smile. So I have no problems with any of that stuff, and I even like the giant prawn. I had no issues at all with the giant virus. The whole thing was great.
I must say, I don't know how the element of surprise was ever deployed in season 15 with the noisy K9 throughout that whole season. That's right. It was so noisy, and they fixed it up for the Key to Time season. So that was a good thing, I guess.
Occasionally, he went to stealth mode, like the Cyber knows do thump 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 thump. And there's one point where they go to stealth mode and suddenly turn around. There's Cyberman. They're like, "How did you get this so quietly?" K9 would suddenly just appear. And I love he'd go up to the TARDIS, and you'd have to cut out a shot because how on earth he managed to make that little jump into the TARDIS? No idea.
How did you like it when in the Gallifrey series, K9's Mark 1 and 2 were brought back together? Because of course we had Leela and Romana.
Yeah, it was really great actually having both those K9s together. And in the Gallifrey series, it's Mark 1 gets destroyed at one point. Leela's K9 gets destroyed. And I remember being devastated. So was she. I mean, it was so well acted by Lou, and K9 was destroyed, and just being and because of Leela's personality, she wouldn't have another one made for her. It wasn't. He was gone. He was dead. But I still remember being really sad in that series when they kill him off.
So how many K9s did we have? 3, didn't we? So Mark 3 was the K9 and Company, and then Sarah Jane Adventures later on. So there wasn't any more, was there?
Mark 3 gets blown up in the Sarah Jane Smith story, and there's a new one. Is that Mark 4, or is this Mark 3 put back together again? I suspect that's Mark 4, isn't it?
Well, I always assumed it was the same K9 that was in the 5 Doctors. Is it blown up in K9 and Company? It's been so long since
No, not in K9 and Company, but in the 10th Doctor's show. What's it called? I can't think what it's called.
School Reunion.
School Reunion. In School Reunion, he gets blown up because he stays and he blows up the vat and kills all the creatures. Okay. And so he's blown up in the process. And then when the TARDIS dematerializes, there's a new K9 there for Sarah. I was never
Oh.
quite sure whether that was.
I think he just repaired it. I just assumed he repaired it. That's all.
It was a very big explosion. I don't know how you repair something. Anyhow,
Mm.
maybe you know.
Okay.
Put in the comments below. Is it K9 Mark
Is it Mark 3 or
4
Mark 4?
or Mark 3
Yep.
repaired?
Yep. So then we had the K9 series that was made in Australia. I've probably watched the first 2 episodes out of the 26 episodes in that. I've never quite been able to get
I watched the
beyond
first
that.
8 or 9 and never got beyond that either. Yeah.
That was a struggle getting that far, was it?
It was. They certainly weren't good enough to go back and try again, I don't think. Which is a bit of a shame.
Maybe with my daughter being 8, maybe I can use her as an excuse to watch them. Yeah, give it a go. I think I should. I've got the DVD set there and I've never really got into it. So, yeah. So there we go. Have it with all the different iterations of K9, and most of them, of course, apart from season 17 of Doctor Who, were voiced by John Leeson, who we're going to talk to in a moment. What should we put a trailer on before we go into our chat with John? What do you think?
Well, why not Gallifrey?
Yeah, let's do Gallifrey. Part 1, which I think that was called Weapon of Choice?
It was fantastic. That first season. We have to do some Gallifrey at some point because, boy, I love Gallifrey.
Let's do it soon. But here's a trailer for Part 1 of Gallifrey.
Did I ever tell you I was in love once? It's true. She drove me to drink. I'll be forever in her debt.
This is the life of the outsider. Why would you cross this line, Sister Leela?
When I am inside the city, old man, now that feels like outside to me.
You have been inside for many years. You have changed, for the city never does.
There was a man. They said he was my tamer, but it was not like that. We were both of us lions, happy mated in our cage. Then came the day that he did not return. As 2 lions, we were proud to walk the city. But 1 lion alone does not make a pride. There is not even the Doctor. Not anymore.
For us Gallifreyans, time travel is a privilege. Others might wish to use it for undesirable ends, and so access to the space-time vortex must be regulated.
Vortex off. Intercepted an automated capsule bound for here. Black light rods inside. That means another amateur wanting to try their tentacle at time travel.
The mighty Celestial Intervention Agency. Wrong again.
Your report tells me that a rogue individual has used your own intelligence, such as it is, first to infiltrate a time technology assessment team, and second to steal an illicit temporal element from under the CIA's nose.
I seek information on the subversive organization known as Free Time.
Well now, a robot dog. That's new. Pink elephants are usually the thing.
Someone's going to suffer for this.
Well, it is my great pleasure to welcome to the Sirens of Audio, John Leeson. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much indeed. Hi.
Well, it's a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
No, at all. The journey is only a short one, let's face it.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, yes.
So what I'd like to ask you, John, being born in Leicestershire in 1943,
yeah.
What are some of your standout memories from your childhood?
I can tell you that I was born into a haunted house. My father's vicarage was actually in the middle of Leicester. It was an ancient old rambling house, but it had poltergeist activity within it during my very earliest years. And I remember my father telling me he had on occasion to dodge the cups and the plates that were being thrown around. But I didn't see any of that personally. But I do remember it was a shared house. In fact, the half the house was shared by the the verger and the head of the bell ringers of my father's church. He was vicar of St Margaret's Church, Leicester, big parish right in the centre of Leicester. But yes, I don't remember terribly much about my childhood, really, until I suppose I was taken away from St Margaret's when I was about 8. And I must have won a choral scholarship, I think, to Winchester Cathedral. And I was then a pupil at probably England's oldest school, the Pilgrims' School at Winchester, where the preparatory choirs are trained from. And I spent my time singing services at Winchester Cathedral, longest cathedral in England. Yes.
It's interesting you mentioned that house and the paranormal activity, because I've been listening to your autobiography, Tweaking the Tale, over the last couple of weeks. And
yeah.
I recall you talking about a dinner that you had with Lalla Ward and Richard Dawkins, where you related some of that to them. And Richard Dawkins, what was his response?
Do you know, I don't remember. You tell me. If I wrote it down in Tweaking the Tale, I must have remembered it when I was writing it down.
Yeah, well, if you, I think he was a little bit skeptical, and you decided to maybe not speak about it anymore in his presence.
Right. This is Tom Baker, of course.
No, Richard Dawkins.
Oh, Richard Dawkins. Oh,
yeah.
Right. Because Tom and Lalla came to dinner on one occasion with us, and I cooked for them. And Tom immediately said, "Where's Guy?" Our son was then about, 3 or 4, I suppose. And I said, "Well, he's in bed." "Well, take me to him. I want to see him. I want to read him a bedtime story." So Judy, my wife, took Tom upstairs, and I'm sure Guy must have heard the most surreal tale ever in his life. But then the following day, Judy said to Guy, she said, "Guy, did you tell them at school that you'd had Tom Baker and Lalla Ward for dinner last night?" No. Why not? Because they think I'm silly. They think that I think Tom Baker comes to dinner and Lalla Ward comes to dinner too. So no, I couldn't possibly tell them. They wouldn't believe me for a moment. There you are.
Well, you said you were cooking for Tom and Lalla. Yeah. What where did your love of cooking come from? Because that's one of your lifelong passions and hobbies.
Probably my mother. Because let's face it, I came in halfway through the Second World War when there was scarcity aplenty. And she herself was a sort of duty cook, I think. Cooking wasn't in her bloodstream. But it certainly came into my bloodstream much later on down the line. And so I got, as it were, the plainest food probably for quite a few years.
Just mentioning in terms of when you were born, because 43, great year. It's when Sylvester McCoy was born, Colin Baker was born, my mother was born.
And Biden was born.
Yeah.
I'm as old as Jack.
Do you have any recollection of your time as a hospital porter and some of the experiences you had there?
You see, my father being the vicar of a big Leicester parish, he was also chaplain to Leicester Royal Infirmary. and he'd got me a job as a hospital porter. So that's just basically wheeling patients about here and there. And I do very much remember the very first occasion when I had to take a covered figure down to the mortuary. But these things happen, apparently. It's called time travel sometimes, but on this occasion it was terminal illness that sent somebody away.
A lot of these stories from your early life are in the book Tweaking the Tale, which I definitely recommend anyone grab a hold of.
If you get a copy, I think it's been out of print for a while.
Has it?
I think so. But see what around your place. See what's available. Go on to Amazon or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I grabbed the audio book because I find it much nicer to listen to your voice.
Ah, yes, good.
So, you mentioned at drama school you worked with, you trained with people such as Anthony Ainley, Jacqueline Pearce.
Yes.
They're the big Doctor Who names. Did you just know them vaguely, or did you know them very well?
Well, you got to know your fellow students very well indeed. I mean, Anthony Hopkins was in the class above mine, the strand above mine. One of the most fantastic actors who were alongside me was an actor called Ronald Pickup, sadly no longer with us, but my goodness me, what a credit to the profession. What I do remember, though, was some of the training at RADA. I used to be relatively good at fencing. No, not putting things up in the garden. No. Fencing as in sword play, stuff like that. Basically, hand and eye connections together. And there was another thing. I'm still laughing about it, I think, all these years later. One of our teachers decided to clear a classroom completely and put a rickety old chair right in the middle of the classroom and then say to us, right, now, one by one, each come along to the centre and I want you to make love to this old chair. All right? We all had a go, and my goodness me, the laughter is still ringing in my ears.
A few different techniques there.
Disinhibition exercise, I think.
So you did a lot of theatre after leaving drama school.
Yes.
And you have done lots of theatre over the years. What is it you like especially about theatre?
Oh, the theatre, principally because you're in a live situation and virtually it's a growing situation. No one performance is like the next performance. When I was working in town, in the West End, in shows, I was lucky enough to work with a wonderful actor called Michael Hordern in a play where on the first night, you would have thought, my goodness me, this performance simply can't get any better. It's marvelous, absolutely watertight, and it's such a balance for any other supporting actor. But across the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that performance grew and grew, minuscule growth right the way through, improving every single night. Michael was finding new things which he could feed into his basic performance. And that's how it was, of course, in this wonderful system we had over here in the UK, the repertory theatre, which sadly no longer obtains. very, very, very sad indeed. It was my very first outlet into rep theatre after RADA, where I did all the formal training, was out in the field, if you like. And this was a summer season at Frinton-on-Sea on the east coast, where we played not just weekly rep, but split weeks. Now, what on earth was split weeks? Split weeks meant that you rehearsed a play for about a week, put it on for half a week, and immediately took it off again and started rehearsing the next play, so that all the punters who'd come to the seaside to enjoy their summer holidays could effectively see 2 live plays every week. And for our pains, we were paid £7 a week. Guest artists who were called in actually could command £13. And I thought to myself that when I can command £13 a week, I shall have arrived. How about that?
We had a theatre group out here called Nimrod who did repertoire, and they did 4 plays in rotation all in the same week. So during the course of a week, you would see all 4 plays, same cast, totally different roles. And I remember seeing all 4 plays over 2 weeks and being astounded by someone, a main role in one play, a minor role in another one, but all of them just playing.
But the joy of repertory theatre was quite often it called upon you to be miscast to a degree where you really had to stretch yourself as a technical actor to reach the character that was written for you. It was a wonderful system. It really was. Oh, the very last of the repertory theatres I'd ever visited was Taunton in the West Country. And Taunton, we did a summer theatre there. And at the end of the season, the Friends of the Theatre of Taunton put on a great party to thank the company in general. And the chairman of the Friends of the theatre came to me and he said, John, we've really enjoyed having you here this summer season, and we're so sorry to be losing you back to London again. Oh, my dear. But tell me, though, are you planning to take up this acting thing, then?
What a question.
I've often wondered, John.
I simply couldn't utter. I just least. And this is the chairman of the Friends of the Theatre down there.
I've often wondered, John, in terms of live theatre, what is the role the audience plays? So when you're on stage, are you lost in the play with your fellow actors? Or is the audience actually playing a role in terms of the energy you get or don't get? What's the role of the audience?
You must remember that the audience is playing along with you. Well, particularly in comedies, because there's a sort of platform of laughs that you get from the audience that holds you up. And so you can time things according to how much the audience is engaging with what's going on stage. But yes, even in serious plays, where you don't get all this applause and laughter and this, that, and the other, there is some sort of electricity between yourselves as actors on stage and the audience's attention to what you're actually doing and being on stage that is, again, a floor for you to confidently tread on, which is marvellous.
Excellent. Now, I want to take you down memory lane by means of a video clip. I found some television that you appeared in in the early 70s. And I want to just see if I can spark some memories here from you. Just check this out.
I did, David. I'm very sorry. But I was passing the sponge to my friend Bungle, and it accidentally slipped out of my hand.
Oh, that's what happened, was it?
Yes, you see, Zippy says that a wet sponge is much heavier than a dry one, so we were just finding out.
There's no need to find out, it's true.
Is it, David?
Yes,
See,
it is.
I told you.
Oh, lumbering lollipop, Zippy, I'm not asking you.
It's still true. A sponge soaks water up, so it must be heavier when it's wet.
I know sponges soak water up. You don't have to tell me that.
I have to tell you everything.
Oh, no, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You don't.
Do.
Don't.
Oh, all right, you two.
Well, I'm fed up anyway. I'm going.
Good riddance.
It's riddance, Bungle. Good riddance.
Oh, well, I don't care what it is. He's gone now.
Well,
There you go.
I never did. I have just been at a Comic Con in Exeter, West Country,
Yep.
where I had as on my table not just pictures of K9 and Doctor Who things, but Bungle Bear in rainbow. Now the Bungle Bear in your clip there had the original head of Bungle, which looked quite frightening to some.
Yes, I've seen
Right.
lots of comments about how terrifying it was.
It was not the happiest. And so when I left Rainbow, they decided to redesign the head and make it look very, very much more friendly. But that contract I had for doing Bungle Bear was one of the hottest I have ever had in my life, because under studio lights it's fearsomely hot, and inside that costume as well, I had to have salt tablets to keep me going across the day. It was dreadful. But yes, Bungle Bear, that was very much one of my first major television things. My first major film thing was a film of, now what was it called? Tarka the Otter. Henry Williamson's book, Tarka the Otter. And I was cast as the Hunt secretary. Now this caused my agent a great deal of worry, because he eventually phoned the production company and he said, you know, you've cast John as Hunt secretary, but you know, I'm going to have to warn you, John doesn't ride. Of course, there was much laughter down the other end of the line. And they said, of course, you don't ride to otters. You have to walk halfway down the rivers to catch otters. No riding is involved, thankfully. So there we are.
Very good. So was your theatre training and experience important in your television career as well?
Yes,
Particularly in Rainbow and comedies like Dad's Army and Allo Allo.
Absolutely. What it does, amongst anything other things, is to teach you to listen. Teach you not to get in the way of yourself. Teach you to be sharing all the time. It's not me acting. It's open. It's an open experience. And that's certainly true in theatre. And of course, it carries across to working in television. True. I mean, in television also, there's another element that comes in, as in film too, where you've got an editor working on a film, cutting this, that, and the other. So the speed and the control is very much in the hands of a technician in post-production. but it's wonderful. It's a beautiful job. This is something I have difficulty telling fans of Doctor Who occasionally, that I myself am not particularly a fan of Doctor Who. What? What? No, I say, I'm just an actor doing a job. And the job I had was totally unexpected. There was a day in 1977, way back, when my agent phoned up and he said, John, just had a call from the BBC. As though he'd never had a call from the BBC before in his life. He said, just had a call from the BBC. They want to know whether you want to play 2 parts in Doctor Who. What do you think? Oh my goodness, I thought, wow, how fantastic. What a breakthrough. Is it? No, steady. They're only voice parts. Okay, fine. And the other thing about it is that they're only in for one storyline. Don't expect any more after that. That's it. But they're on offer should you be interested. So I thought, well, I might as well give it a go. And here I am in 2024, as it happens to be, still involved in doing spin-offs of Doctor Who, playing the voice of K9. That is correct.
It never ends. It never ends. So speaking of Doctor Who, what you got on well with Tom Baker. What was the secret to getting on well with Tom?
Just be who you are, basically. Tom might well have been accused of being unfriendly, as sort of don't work with animals or children or robot dogs, if you like. The other part I was playing was that of a virus, which I'd assumed was the smallest part any actor could be awarded, but it turned out to be a sort of piece of seaweed. So I had to provide voices for 2 things.
It was a prawn, yeah.
Yes. No, I got on very, very well with Tom. Quirky humour, yes. They warned me, yes, Tom is as mad as a box of frogs. But Tom and I, because we're 2 ends of the spectrum, I suppose, really. And if you do your job reasonably well, one of the key things in the very first story we did, The Invisible Enemy, was a game of chess together. And the speed at which that goes is still wonderful, to my mind anyway. But that just gives you some idea of the way that you just simply connect with how the other actor is thinking and playing and being. And I could do it, and he was happy, so why not carry on? And Graham Williams, I think, was the producer at that time, and he was happy to see that everything was working out. So he decided to continue to keep the character in the storylines.
Did you find that it was that connection between the actors, that because you were doing it in studio with, or at least in rehearsals anyway, with the other actors, whereas when you came back for the new series, you weren't doing that? Was there something that you felt was missing when you came back and just did the dubs?
No, I don't think so, particularly, because I'd had practice, of course, within the earlier series. But yes, just to recap a little bit on this, when I first did the first storyline, The Invisible Enemy, K9 was still in the workshops, BBC workshops, being finished. he wasn't there through the rehearsal period, and he wasn't there until the final run through for the first showing. And so I was being K9 on all fours and running around with eye contact to the actors and being where K9 should have been going. What I didn't know, and what the studio certainly didn't know, that K9's motorized circuits were still on the same frequencies as the signals being fed to the cameras. And so K9 was going all over the place and causing a great deal of delay and worry. And I thought to myself, well, studio time is so expensive. And if this is going to go on this way, then obviously K9's going to be out of the back door as swiftly as possible. But here I am today.
So at what point did they work out that you should stay and K9 should stay? When was that decision
No
made?
idea. I have no idea what official decision had been made. It's just that another contract came through and I just carried on until told to stop.
So how did you enjoy getting off all fours and up in front of the camera with Neil McCarthy and Philip Maddock for one of those stories?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Yes, that was very good. Yes, I enjoyed a bit of that.
Yeah. That was towards the end of the time that you decided to leave the first time. You just had enough by that stage? Wanted to get back to...
No, I don't think so. I mean, if there's a job available and you know, as an actor, how risky it is to get jobs in any event in the business, I thought, well, what's to hurt if I stay on? You know, I'm getting on. I'm not exactly God's gift.
Well, that's not true.
Actually, in your book, you refer to the fact that a lot of actors, or some actors, looked down on advertising, like commercials, but you never did that. So you did a lot of work in commercials back in the day.
Well, I did some, yes, certainly. I mean, our tiled kitchen floor, bless it, is a result of a commercial I voiced for Oxo, I think, way back in the way back when. So don't knock it if it's going to give you, particularly if you've got costs at home and you've got children and wives and just wife to keep up, things like that.
So how did John Nathan Turner convince you to come back after David Brierley decided to leave?
I think he said, "Would you like to come back?"
Simple as that?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, why not?" Yeah, because I enjoyed myself particularly.
So you've come back a few times for the role of K9. First of all, after Tom and Lala's final season and yours, you came back for K9 and Company. And
Liz.
Do you have some interesting stories from that production?
I don't recall any, I think. But I know it was wonderful working with Liz Sladen. It was wonderful, too, working with David Brierley. I mean, his mind turned on a sixpence. It was... every actor is different. They told us at RADA, the drama school, they said, don't ever, ever forget, actors are only people. And how many different people do we know,
Lots of different people.
Yep.
And since then, you've come back to recreate the role for audio many, many times over. Do you enjoy coming back for the character, or is it just a job for
I
you?
do. Yes. I mean, I don't. It's not something that I, would turn down other more visible work for. But you have to wait until you're offered it, I think, is the answer.
You also played two different versions of K9 as well. That would have been difficult too, because there was a K9 that was left on Gallifrey, and there
Yes,
was the Romana's K9. So you were playing two at the same
right.
time.
That's right. One was a much more sort of, how shall I say, humanized version of K9. Yes, I was being reminded of this the other day, where it wasn't the static, pedantic K9 that everybody knows. It was a much more sort of one that had been invaded emotionally to a degree,
Yes.
which was quite good. And in fact, whoever told me about it said how good I was. I'm extraordinary, but there it
Well, you are
is.
good. You are very good.
Oh, thank you.
Now, just sidestepping from Doctor Who for a moment, I just
Sure.
want to show you another image briefly and get your recall on what you remember of this, a different science fiction program altogether. Do you recall that?
Blake 7. Blake,
Yes, your second appearance, that one.
that's right. How on earth I managed to keep that on my head, I will not ever know. But yes, it was a little bit of an adventure, wasn't it?
Yes, a very, very, very camp episode, that one with Aubrey Woods.
That's right. That's right. Aubrey Woods, bless him.
And Jacqueline Pearce again too. You got to work with her
Yes.
as a rider.
Yes, certainly.
This brings to mind the time that I met you. I met you not that long ago, relatively speaking. It was about 10 years ago. So here's an image. That's me in the middle. You're sitting there on the end. That was in Melbourne in 2014.
Oh, was it just?
Now I've got a bone to pick with you, because you probably can't see, but you're sitting there with your eyes closed. So that's my. They only took one. So, but yes,
it happened.
That was my brief brush with you in 2014. What are some of your standout memories of fan conventions over the years? Is there anything that jumps out at you that is memorable?
Oh. Well, my very, very first convention in the States was in Philadelphia. And I turned up in this convention hall in Philadelphia. Nobody, of course, knew what I looked like. It was a great advantage. So I went to the showrunner and I said, look, as nobody knows what I look like, dress me up as a fan as much as you can, and I'll spend the morning moseying around with everybody, being a fan and, going into the background, if you like. And you tell them at lunchtime that I've been delayed at the airport. So, because of my delay, why don't we have a K9 sound-alike contest? And so I took part in this K9 sound-alike contest. And after each fan had done their K9, they were sent back to their seats and, all the rest. Next one. And then the showrunner said, I've just heard that John Leeson is on his way from the airport. So, folks, back on stage, straight away. We want to find out who is the best K9. Hands over heads, right down the line. And would you believe I did not win? Showrunner said, "Okay, everybody back to your seats. Everybody back to your seats." And the little guy who won, he went back to his seat last. And finally, the showrunner said, "Okay, guys, I can tell you John Leeson is in the building. Okay, right, so let's now welcome John Leeson." Everybody turns to the back of the room and looks for the double doors for me to come in. And I simply get up from my seat and go up to the stage. I don't think I've ever had a bigger response in my life. They had been had completely. But of course, it's a one-trick pony, as you say.
One off, yeah. Can't do that again.
Never do it again.
Is that the same convention you had the interesting experience in the elevator with the rather large fan?
Which rather larger fan was this?
Oh, you may not remember that one, but it's in your book.
I don't, but
Maybe you'll have to get the book to get that one, folks. It's a good story.
Okay.
Tell us about being a lay magistrate. How does that work in the UK? Because a magistrate here is just a lower kind of judge, but
That's
is it
right.
different in the UK?
Is in the UK. Now, this was as a result of my second profession as a wine teacher, where one of my colleagues, I did not know this at the time, was herself a lay magistrate, or not a professional or a paid magistrate, but you are commissioned by the authorities to sit in local courts, to be a magistrate, and you are advised in the local courts by the clerk of the court as to what you may legally take into account and what you have to dismiss altogether. And I spent quite a year or two in my locality here in Ealing, West London, as a lay magistrate, which was absolutely fascinating because it was a side of work and a side of meeting people that I'd never ever expected to meet in my life before. As I say, it's unpaid. And at that particular time, you are statutorily retired at the age of 70. That's now gone up to 75, apparently. And they're now talking about lay justices having greater powers of sentence, because we could only go up to 6 months of a custodial sentence. But now they want to take it up to a full year, apparently. That's only just this week's news. So there we go. But yes, no, that was a fascinating new sign to me of society out there, rather than audiences sitting in front of either screens or watching you live on a stage.
What kind of cases were you trying?
Basically, fairly low standard cases, most of all involving decisions on bail. Do we give you bail, or do we? I mean, the more serious cases, you'd have to remand to the Crown Court because they had greater powers of sentence than we ourselves. So anything that was really, really serious, you then have to make a decision as to whether they go to the Crown Court on bail or whether they go to the Crown Court in custody. So yeah, there's quite a few legal decisions to be made under the guidance of the clerk of the court, of course, who is a paid professional lawyer.
You mentioned your second career of wine teaching. So was acting work coming a bit hard to come by? You decided to do something that you loved, a bit of wine tasting and teaching?
I was just fascinated in wine. I just loved it. Sorry, I'm not half as think as you drunk I might be, honestly. I was just very interested in wine, and the opportunity to teach wine, both wine classes in London and equally to teach on board cruises, which I thought was a lovely way to spend a cruise. You wouldn't have to pay for the cruise, but of course your lecturing paid for the cruise itself, and you got all the amenities of the ship alongside. In fact, I don't know when this is going out where you are, but at the end of September, my wife and I are going on yet another cruise, home waters this time. It's from sort of Ireland round the UK, ending up in London. But we are both lecturing on our various subjects. Mine is wine and culture in general, and Judy's is the work she's done across the years in set designing, well, in fact, set dressing and props buying for the BBC and also for a whole range of films.
What do you think of Australian wines?
Well, the word ripeness comes to mind, I think. Some beautiful wines. Where you are, you really do have some really fine wines. No question about it. But I grew up on European style wines where you've got cooler elements bursting through, Germanic wines. I'm very fond of Italian wines, Italian food too. That's the other thing before we go. The BBC put me up for a competition to invent a recipe which described the taste of Italian food. Well, that's impossible. You can't possibly do it. There are 30 different regions in the whole of Italy, each of which has its own gastronomic culture and its own sort of ingredients and its own climate and its own this, that, and the other. What do? It's an amalgam. So I just did a sort of compromise. I put in a recipe involving faraona. Now, what's that? Well, it was the bird of the pharaohs, guinea fowl, or guinea fowl or Cornish hen. I think the Americans call it Cornish hen. And that was entered into the competition, and it won. How could it possibly win? But the prize was out of all proportion to the amount of effort writing out a recipe involving guinea fowl. A long weekend with the top wine writer of his day in Venice at the top hotel there. What's his name? Don't worry, it's gone. But it was, and Judy came along as well. We had a fantastic celebration of this funny little recipe that I brought, put down on paper. Some you win, others, well.
Sounds awesome. Now, you mentioned Judy. You celebrated a huge milestone last month with Judy. 55 years of wedded bliss. Congratulations.
Thank you very, very much. Yes, indeed.
What's the secret?
Just get on with it.
There you go. You heard it here first.
But
Or is Judy just a very patient woman?
She has to be with me. My goodness me. Yes, absolutely. No, she's wonderful. Really wonderful.
Was it true that on your wedding day that you got married? Was it you got married in the morning and did a performance in the afternoon?
That's right. Absolutely right. I got married twice on my wedding day. Because I was in a play called Plaza Suite in the West End of London, playing two parts. The first part and one play was a bellhop in an American hotel, and the second part was a bridegroom in the fourth of the plays. And I had to leave our own wedding reception, which was about a couple of miles away from the centre of London, early, in order to get to the theatre in time for the matinee. And I just got into the matinee. Judy, of course, wouldn't let me wear the costume I had, which was a perfectly good costume as a bridegroom. She had me go out and hire a wedding costume for ourselves. And then, of course, the rest of the wedding guests came along to see the evening show. So that was their prize for my departure, having to go.
So how did you and Judy meet?
We both met at a party to which neither of us had been invited.
Your gate crashes.
Yes, sort of, yeah. From opposite ends.
And you said she was a set decorator for the BBC?
Sorry?
Did you say she was a set decorator for BBC?
Yes, set decorator and a props buyer for years and years and years. Won an award recently from the British Design Council or whatever for her work. Very clever lady, very clever.
Well, I, for one, can let you know that it's okay that you're not a Doctor Who fan. We are still very grateful for the work that you've done, put into our show. So, and we really appreciate you joining us today. So thank you, John Leeson, for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you, John.
You very much for having borne with me thus long. Yes.
It's been fantastic.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Lost Stories, The Doomsday Contract.
Doctor, we need you. You must come to us.
What? I have got numbers in my head. A set of coordinates.
Who could beam coordinates directly into your brain?
K9, feed them into the TARDIS computer.
Act like an expert, but don't act like you know more than the judge. And most importantly, smile, but don't look like a lunatic.
My craft has a mind of her own.
Are you proposing that this contraption has sentience?
Oh, definitely. Yes,
Then the machine is culpable. Call security and arrest it for trespass, contempt of court, impediment of justice, impersonating a police officer. Put it in the cells until such time as it can stand trial.
A Time Lord called the Doctor?
I've heard of him. An annoying space hippie who likes to get involved.
Cosmegalon bought this planet to bulldoze it, but we cited a preservation order placed on it 3 million years ago.
So that planet's under real threat.
I'm afraid so.
Does this planet have a proper name?
Earth!
No! Tragacanth! Don't open it!
Hello, Doctor. Hello. We are the children of Pixie, and we are here to bring you life.
The children of Pixis are back! K9's knocking them out of the air, but they're just reappearing again.
You will be vaporized.
Your Honor.
And your atoms will be scattered to the 9 corners of the universe until you be dead.
Your Honor, you're not in the criminal courts anymore. This is a civil court.
They're already out.
They're coming for us! They're going to kill us!
Big Finish. We love stories.
So there you go. That was lovely, Philip.
He's such a charming man and so much fun. And it was, yeah, I've always wanted to meet him. I mean, I also went to that convention, but in Sydney, where he was at, and he was interviewed. But I didn't actually get to meet him or talk with him. I just chatting with him now, and He's talking about his, off air, his Cumberland sausages and what he's made for lunch, sausage mash and gravy. I think I'm in the wrong place. I think I should go for lunch.
I showed him my photo there, and you can sort of say you met them, but it's sort of just an eye contact and hello with everybody, and then you sit there for 2 seconds and you're gone again. That's what I love about our events, is that it's a bit more than that.
Well, I was look at all those faces. None of them look particularly.
5 of them have been on the show. Oh yeah, right.
None of them look particularly happy to be there.
John even had his eyes closed.
John even had his eyes closed. Janet doesn't look particularly happy.
But 5 of them have been on the show, so
far
we're very privileged.
We'll get some more of them too, hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's been great. So before we finish up today, let's talk about what we've been listening to and what I've been. My list there, Philip. You know what it says. Come on.
Yeah, okay, I'll go first. I'm actually going to recommend a podcast. I think people know we're well in. Don't know why we're also in Australia. Maybe you're not in the UK, but in America you probably are too. All caught up in the American elections. I've been following the US quite strongly for quite a long time. So I'm gonna one of the podcasts I listen to all the time is called The Rest Is Politics. Now there's the original The Rest Is Politics, which is based out of the UK, and they look at the whole world. But more recently, they've started The Rest Is Politics US with Tony Scaramucci and Kitty Kay. I think that's their names, and they're looking at all things American politics. So yeah, if you're interested in American politics, in what's going on, it is certainly biased. It's certainly biased towards the Democratic side rather than the Republican side. But it's still interesting to hear their takes on what's going on and their views about things, whether they be your views or not. To our American listeners, I don't know where you stand. Doesn't matter. Hopefully, we can all stand with different views, and that's okay. But it's just interesting to have an interesting take on that. So, yeah, and actually, into American politics, the other one is an Australian podcast, all on American politics. It's called PEP, which I think I've recommended before with Chaz and Dr. Dave.
That's probably the last election.
But it was the last election. So yeah, there's quite a few things I'm listening to in terms of the American election. I'm finding it quite fascinating, and I've just finished watching all 7 seasons of The West Wing again in preparation for this election. I did last time 4 years ago before the last election. So yeah, I do find it all quite fascinating what's going on, and be curious to see where the world's heading to next. What are you doing? What are you listening to?
Well, I can tell you what I've been listening to, but I've only just started listening to it, and so I can't rave about how wonderful it is because I'm still on part 1. But I started today listening to a companion chronicle called Upstairs by Matt Coward, and the reason I listened to that was because in the Big Finish newsletter that came out, I noticed that the book club release for this month was Upstairs, and I looked at it and I thought, I don't recall ever seeing that title. And I knew I had it because I've got all the companion chronicles. So I thought I'll go and download that and give it a listen. So it's a First Doctor, Stephen and Vicky story. I don't know if they're both... Oh, yeah, Peter Purvis and Maureen O'Brien are both... Because I've only heard Maureen O'Brien so far, but they're both in it. Let me read the blurb because it's only a short one. It says, when the TARDIS lands in a dilapidated attic, the Doctor, Vicky and Stephen discover they're on Earth in London in number 10 Downing Street. However, alien forces are at play here, affecting the very fabric of the building and adjusting the very essence of history itself. So I love the sound of that blurb as well. I think that kind of convinced me to download it when I read that because I thought that sounds very interesting. So do you recall that story?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Yep, there's interesting scenes around London.
Yeah, so I've just started listening to that, and I know you would heartily recommend any companion chronicle, pretty much, because they're all very, very interesting and very experimental.
Yeah,
so that's us for today. Thanks again to John Leeson and our friend Ian Kubiak as well. Want to give a shout out to him. Make sure you check out his events at Cygnus Alpha as well, because he's very supportive of us, and so we'd like to give a return shout out back to him too. For you listeners in the UK, make sure you catch his events. He's doing a couple with Tom Baker. I think by the time this comes out, he's doing a second one with Tom Baker very soon, if I'm not mistaken. So keep your eye on his events for that. And Philip, Been lovely to be in your company as always.
Lovely to be in your company soon, and hopefully, it won't be long before we're back in the company again in November for lots of events.
Another 6 weeks. I'll be seeing you again in Melbourne. We've got Sylvester and Janet joining us there. So I've booked my flights just a couple of days ago for that. So I'm very excited about that one.
Yes, it's going to be amazing.
And until next time, we'll catch you all later.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio Unleashed with our guest John Leeson and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Our thanks to Ian Kubiak and Cygnus Alpha Events at cygnusalpha.org. Check out our live event details and all other info on the podcast at sirensofaudio.com. Got some feedback? Send your emails to sirensofaudio@gmail.com, or you can just DM us at any of our socials. The handle is @AudioSirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.